Ukrainian authorities have lifted air raid alerts across the nation. Officials in the capital Kyiv said that defenses appeared to have shot down more than 30 missiles and drones fired by Russia. Footage obtained showed people hiding in underground stations before these alerts were lifted. Moscow has launched around 20 separate missile and drone strikes against Ukrainian cities since the start of May. Ukraine accused Russia of once again halting the Black Sea grain deal. The allegations were made by Ukraine's Ministry of Renovation and Infrastructure on Thursday. A UN spokesman said that Russia had informed concerned authorities that it would limit registrations to a port in Odessa city until all parties agree to unblock the transit of Russian ammonia. The spokesman also raised concerns over sluggish progress of the deal, which is the key for grain exports from Ukraine to all over the world. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky expressed outrage over civilian deaths and warns local officials to act or face prosecution. This came after 2 women and a 9-year-old girl died in Kyiv following a strike by Russia. Following the strike, the trio had rushed to an air raid shelter but failed to open it. Zelensky's comments appeared to be aimed at Kyiv city authorities and its mayor, with whom he has repeatedly clashed during the war. BRICS foreign ministers on Thursday asserted their bloc's ambition to rival Western powers. The ministers also discussed plans to potentially admit new members to the club. South Africa's foreign minister said that more work is needed to make such plans work. But the talks in South Africa have been overshadowed by questions on whether Russian President Vladimir Putin would be arrested if he attended the summit scheduled to take place in August. These questions come in the aftermath of an arrest warrant issued against Putin by the International Criminal Court for his alleged war crimes. Chinese government on Thursday criticized the United States' plans to sign a trade treaty with Taiwan. The Chinese Foreign Ministry called on Washington to stop official contact with the self-ruled island democracy, which Beijing claims as part of its own territory. It also accused Washington of violating agreements on the status of Taipei. This came as US and China signed the first deal under the framework of new trade talks. The US Senate on Thursday passed a bipartisan legislation that lifts the government's $31.4 trillion debt ceiling. The Senate voted 63 to 36 to approve the bill, which averts what would have been a historic first-ever default. The bill was earlier passed by House of Representatives as lawmakers raced against the clock following months of partisan bickering between Democrats and Republicans. Chicago City Council approved $51 million in funding to help asylum seekers. But some officials in the US city believe that money won't last long and more needs to be done to address the ongoing crisis. This came as several migrants were seen sitting across the city in open spaces. Authorities are running out of space to house migrants who have been stuffed in police stations and community colleges apart from shelter homes. Supporters of Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program rallied outside a court in Houston in Texas on Thursday. This came as the court heard arguments from a lawsuit from Texas and other states which argue that the program, also known as DACA, violates federal laws. DACA is a program brought during the reign of Barack Obama, which offers deportation relief and work permits to immigrants brought to the country illegally as children. These kids are known as dreamers. Finland's President Sauli Niinisto met his Brazilian counterpart Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva in Brasilia. The meeting took place for consolidating the relations between the two nations. During the meeting, the delegations signed an air services agreement. The two sides also agreed to deepen cooperation on issues such as the response to the war in Ukraine. Lula said that he is trying to take a neutral stance in order to be able to broker peace talks. Chilean President Gabriel Boric said that his government will remain committed on defending human rights and renewing energies. The remarks were made during his second State of the Union address to the Congress. During the speech, Boric reiterated his efforts to defending nature, minorities and promoting freedom. The president also announced that the government will send a bill to the Congress this year to seek bids for large-scale energy storage requiring $2 billion in investments. Several German cities witnessed scuffle between protesters and police. This happened as a court in eastern Germany sentenced a woman to over 5 years in prison. She was sentenced for taking part in a series of attacks on neo-Nazis and other right-wing extremists over a period of 2 years. The woman was accused by prosecutors of having a militant extreme left ideology and conceiving the idea of attacks on far-right individuals in Leipzig and nearby towns. Far-left groups announced plans to protest against the verdict, prompting police to build up a large presence in Leipzig in anticipation of unrest.